Hey guys, how's it going? Brian from Boas here. You may be frustrated by the exorbitant prices that many pet shops and specialty reptile shops are charging for vivarium supplies, including the essential cork bark tubes and flats. However, it's pretty easy to make your own if you have a supply to cork bark oak or another similar type of tree. Today I'm going to show you how I make my own cork bark hides from cork bark oak logs. If you find this video helpful, I'd really appreciate if you would subscribe to the Brian Boas YouTube channel so you don't miss any future videos on keeping and breeding boas, as well as updates on my boa breeding activities. So here's the wood I'm going to be working with to make my bark hides. These are actually cork oak, and I was lucky that my neighbor had cut down a cork oak tree some time ago and had a huge pile of these logs, and I was able to get quite a few. But the cork oak has this great soft spongy bark. It's very lightweight and has this really nice texture that the snakes like to rest against. Cork bark oak unfortunately doesn't grow over a lot of the country. It grows a lot out here in California, but there's quite a few other species of tree that you can use where the bark has similar properties. So use your discretion at what is the most suitable bark to make the hides. And so these logs I've actually left outside for about a year or so, and I've let them season. When I first got them, the bark was very firmly attached because they were just cut down and had been recently live. But you can see they've seasoned and the bark is kind of peeling back away from the wood part. The wood is actually also much lighter. It's kind of is decomposing inside. I could barely lift this log when I first got it. It was probably over 100 pounds. Now it's, a fraction of that. But I'm just going to hopefully remove this bark, and hopefully, because these logs have been properly seasoned, I should be able to just gently peel it away. A few essential tools I'm going to use to make the hides. I've got this nice pruning saw that I can use to cut the bark, and then I'm going to use this screwdriver as kind of a chisel and this mallet to hammer it in and just kind of pry away the bark off of the solid wood part. I'm going to start with this big one here. Get my saw. Okay. And it's really nice and light. I can just pull this up with just one hand, and you can see the solid wood is actually falling right through. So it's all nicely loosened up. That's the importance of the seasoning. You let it weather on the outside, it gets rained on, it gets struck by the sun, and it starts to break down. It makes it super easy to get the bark out. Okay, it's almost through. Okay, so we're through, and actually I might just be able to, see, I don't even need to use my hammer and chisel. Look how nice and easy that comes off. You can see this wood is already rotted quite a bit, so I'm probably just going to compost it in my garden. I'll make really nice soil. You can see I have this nice large tube, cork bark tube, and I've never actually seen one this big in pet shops. So one of the benefits of having a supply of cork oak. So the outer bark is a nice lightweight, and it's also got this inner bark. So we want to peel away the inner bark because the inner bark is kind of dirty and crumbly. You don't have to get all of it, but you want to get as much as you can. I'm going to use my screwdriver and my mallet as a chisel to just scrape away the inner bark. Get started over here. I'm going to scrape off as much of this as I can. Again, it's not imperative to get it all off. You want to get quite a bit off so it doesn't flake up and dirty up your snake cage. So I was able to remove quite a bit of the inner bark just using a screwdriver and also my saw. There are of course special tools, chisels, and other woodworking tools that work a lot better for this. So if you have access to those tools, I greatly encourage you to use those rather than a screwdriver. This is okay for now. I can trim more of the inner bark after I cut this into individual pieces for the snake cages. Now I'm going to cut this smaller piece and get the bark off of it. So I'll start by just sawing, and I want to pick a strategic area to saw. So this is kind of the quickest route from one side to the other because of this growth scar where the branch was. So I'm going to cut in the seam. You got to watch your fingers, of course. Nice and easy, like a hot knife through butter. Not quite there though. I'm not quite sure that this piece is going to come off as easily as the last one. Let's give it a go. Here it comes. I think I just got to cut it a little bit more. I feel like I'm pulling a wisdom tooth out or something. Okay, that should do it. I'm just going to loosen it with my screwdriver and mallet. I got it. Okay, and now I just crack it right off. Look at that. You can see the fairly advanced composition of the wood inside. I'm just going to put that aside for my compost heap. And voila, there is the cork bark tube. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to strip out the inner bark like I did for the other piece. And then it will come time for trimming. And I think for this particular one, I'm just going to cut it in half like this. And that will be 2 half pieces for probably a medium to large adult boa, up to about maybe 5 or 6 feet. So I started to clean this out and actually saw a spider in there. Not a black widow, but there are black widows around where I live, and where many of you guys live, there's brown recluse. So be really careful that you don't get bitten by a spider or some other insect when you're, or not an insect, a spider's not an insect, but another arthropod when you're doing this. So I'm going to trim it down, and I'm going to trim on the opposite side for 2 pieces. And I'm going to pick right through the crack here, like this. Okay, so now I got my 2 pieces. Okay, so it will go in the cages like this. And again, the boas will love curling or hiding underneath here, as well as sitting on top, because it gives them this nice rough texture. And of course I'm going to have to finish cleaning this up a bit. For this bigger piece, I think I'm going to trim it into 4 separate pieces. 2 larger pieces for sub-adult to adult boas, and 2 smaller pieces for the younger boas. And I'm just going to cut it in half over on this side, on the opposite side. Okay. Got the 2 pieces. And I'm going to cut it about right here. So this will be for the smaller boa and this will be for the larger one. So we got these 2 pieces like that. And this one I'm going to cut about the same. Just going to cut off the smaller piece at the end. Get my work up for the day here. Of course, if you have an electric saw, you can use that as well. Just be really careful. So I got 4 big pieces and 2 small pieces. And so I'm going to have to clean this up some more, especially that inner bark. But because this has been outside and because insects have infested it and molds and all kinds of microorganisms, it's pretty important to clean it up sterilely. So I'm actually going to bake it in an oven on a cookie sheet for about half an hour or so at 250 degrees Fahrenheit. And that should take care of any critters that remain in the log. And here are my 6 hides for the day. So these should work out quite well for my boas. You can see I've got a few more logs to do, but I'm going to wait for another day to do those and just finish up these guys first and then come back to these 3 remaining logs. But they should be quite nice and my boas should really enjoy them. So one last thing, if you are going to make hides out of bark, make sure that you only get wood that you have permission to collect and you don't collect it from private property or from, someone who hasn't given you explicit permission, or a city park, something like that. It's strictly against the rules in most public or parks or national parks to collect anything. So you don't want to collect anything unless you have explicit permission. So with that said, why don't we just go inside and take a quick look at one of the snakes. I'm going to end the video today by showing you this guy, who's one of the rarest locality boas in my collection. This is a Tomatoma Venezuela true red-tailed boa. And this guy is a 6-year-old young adult. He's maybe 4 feet long. So the Venezuelan true red-tails are one of the smaller forms. And this guy was, the parents of this guy were collected by Terry Cullen from a small village by the name of Tomatoma, which is at the confluence of the Rios Orinoco and Casaquare in southern Venezuela. Really cool story behind these guys. Beautiful colors, this golden, bright, tannish yellow color. Almost similar to a Peruvian, although a little more the brownish. And really cool, very prominent peak saddles. Just a stunning boa to look at. And I actually paired this guy up this year. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like I'm going to have any baby Tomatoma Venezuela red-tails for this year. It was the first time I tried to pair them up, and it looked like they were interested, but for whatever reason it didn't happen this year. So we'll pair him up again with his girlfriend, and hopefully in 2021 I'll have some of these beautiful baby Tomatoma Venezuela true red-tailed boas. So thank you for tuning in. As always, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop me a line. Thanks for watching and enjoy your boas.